theater makers, and welcome back to another episode of Theater's Not Dead with Keyanna Alexander. We are continuing our series on Reshaping Othello. It is a piece I think a lot of us are familiar with, and what happens if we spin it on its head? That's what I'm talking to these people about today. Before we dive into their wonderful bios and who are the guests today, can't wait to tell you. But before that, couple of updates for you. Yes, we have a new theme song. Did you notice? So thank you to DeMarcus for that. You can check him out on Spotify. Also, hi everybody. If you really like the show, you can check us out on Coffee. That's going to have links to our merch. Because guess what? There's merch. There's also going to be the exclusive Key Thoughts, my blog on things all virtual theater. And live. I should stop saying all virtual theater. That's no longer accurate. Have you tried virtual theater, T&D audience? If so, email us at notdeadwithkeyanna@gmail.com. We want to hear from you about your experiences too. Okay, now that all the housekeeping is out the way, who, in fact, are our guests for this morning? Jasmine D Boone is a NYC-based actor, singer, and teaching artist originally from Durham, North Carolina. A recent MFA acting graduate, when not on stage, you'll find her playing her ukulele, reading about astrology, or studying Japanese. Zandi Carlson is a Seattle-based actor, director, and teaching artist, and a proud parent artist. We love to see it. We love to see them. And here they are. Ooh.
Woo!
Hi, you guys. How are you?
Hi, Keyanna. Thank you so much for those wonderful introductions.
Yeah, you're so sweet.
It has become my new passion to dramatically read people's bios as much as possible. So y'all are just giving me the ammunition. You give it to me, I line it up. It's all y'all, though. So if you didn't have wonderful bios, I couldn't do what I do. So we're going to go ahead and dive into our first question. How did you get started in theater? Zandi, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So I've lived in Seattle all my life except when I went away for college. So growing up, I had a friend who did summer camp shows, and she was telling me about it, and it sounded exciting. And I believe my first show was like the summer before third grade, and I played Rolf in The Sound of Music. Starting my many roles where I play male characters. That's continued through professional life here. And yeah, I fell in love with it. I always was a ham and I loved attention. So yeah, I was able to get that out. And I also found that theater was a way to get me excited about learning and getting better at reading and the academic things. I had a purpose to do that rather than just like that's what you're supposed to do. So that was really a motivation for me as well. And then just kept doing summer stuff and got more and more into it, got into dance and acting, singing, and all sorts of stuff. And I just kept going with it. And I have a BFA from Oklahoma City University. I went from Seattle to Oklahoma and then back, and have been working in Seattle since graduation in 2009.
Wow. Also, yes, Sound of Music. I've never been in a production, but
I've done it 3 times. I've done it 3 times. Yeah, I played Rolf, and then I did 2 summer stock productions of it where I was Sister Sophia, one of the nuns quartet, and then the Baroness, Elsa Schrader, in my third time.
Wow. Wow.
I think I'm good though. I don't know that I have to do that show again.
Well,
great show, but I think 3 is like done. Yeah.
If someone offers you another role in Sound of Music, just pass it my way because I never got to do it. So just
Okay.
I got somebody. It's a no for me, but I know someone.
Perfect. I'll send it your way.
Jazmyn, how did you start this thing called theater?
I think I did it like a very roundabout way. Because like just like Zandi, I've been doing it since I was very young. My parents, I don't recall the time that I was like, oh, I want to be an actor. I think I've just always been in front of people. I'm an only child, so like naturally that's my state of being. So I think I was like in kindergarten, and we put on a production of Chicken Little. Obviously, I was Chicken Little. And we did it for like, we just toured around nursing homes to do it. And I was like, the sky is falling. And I was like, okay, this feels kind of good. I kept doing it all throughout middle school, elementary school, high school. I was in show choir. And my parents were like, okay, keep doing it. And when I started to look for colleges, I went to Spelman for a tour. And my father is good friends with one of the theater department heads there, Eddie Bradley. And my dad was like, go, do a theater major. And I was like, theater? Like, I can't do that. That's not like an actual job. That wouldn't pay me anything. It's fun. It's great. But I'm like, livelihood, come on. So I did international studies. I studied at Spelman there, but I still did theater. I still did singing and acting of any type. And then I think after I graduated, I moved to Japan to teach English. Still ended up doing theater and singing open mics and telling my kids to do skits. And then when I came back from Japan, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a diplomat. Let me apply for grad school. And I was like, oh no, that's not it. That's not it at all. And then I auditioned for the community theater of Greensboro's Wizard of Oz, got cast as the Wicked Witch, the youngest person to be cast as the Wicked Witch. Cause like, I mean, I'm playing Mrs. Gulch, who's like 50, 60-year-old. And I'm like 25 at the time, 25, 26. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I got an acting coach and I was like, oh, I'm going to grad school for acting. Just put a lot of work into that. Got my MFA in 2020. So virtual graduation, woo, woo, woo. And from then on, it's just been like pursuing this craft, this investigation of humanness. I think a background in international studies has helped me kind of really be interested in how people live and how people interact with one another. And through acting, I've been able to just kind of put myself in different realities and different positions where I still get to learn about different cultures and understanding why people do the things they do, but I get more of a bird's eye view or a greater point of view about it. But yeah.
I think that is such a perfect parallel for the happenings of Othello, because it is international relationships / messy personal relationships. So it's almost as though you've been training for this your whole life. Only a little. I do have a follow-up question for both of you, though. I'm kind of tracking on the show a theory, and I want to see if either of you will play a statistic in this. As children, were you athletic?
Like, yeah. I played basketball from maybe like 4 to 8 or 9, and then was a cheerleader from middle school all the way up to the end of high school. So yeah, I'd consider myself kind of athletic. Not like the running kind, but the like lifting people up and being hit in the face kind. Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
I felt like I had some physical capabilities, but in terms of like sportsmanship, like coordination, like I was the kid, I did basketball in elementary school for like one, I don't know, period of time, and I only scored on the wrong hoop. So like, I don't think sports ever made a lot of sense to me. But I did gymnastics, and then I did a lot of dance. So like I have a lot of like balance and coordination. So in that sense, that's athleticism. But in terms of actual sports and like playing on a team and knowing what's going on, that was not me.
Wow. Okay. Thank you both for your input, because this is adding layers to it. A lot of my guests have said, oh yeah, no, I can't do sports ball, period. I don't do those things. My legs don't work. So thank you both for like adding to the spectrum of theater athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
They are out there. I'm not one of them, but they are out there.
Theater itself is like a sport. I mean, there is no way that people can really, like, there's no way you don't have any athleticism. And to be able to like run from like one wing to the other, to run all the way around, and to endure like what it takes for like a 2.5, 3 hour show. There's no way.
In character shoes.
In character shoes. Or if you have to do fighting, any kind of stage combat. What? Oh my God.
Yeah, there's so much breath and body connection, even if you're not doing a show with combat or dance or any of that. And then when you add that on, that's even more physically demanding. So yeah, there's a certain amount of body awareness that you have to have as an actor. But I agree, like adding a ball to that takes me out of it. But adding a sword is okay.
Strangely.
So I need to reimagine the ball as though it was a sword, and maybe I can do it.
Yes.
Sure, maybe. I'll try that too.
Okay, all right. I will meet you. I will fly out to the West Coast, and I will meet you on the court.
We'll try it. We'll see. We'll lower the hoop though. I'm sure.
So good. So good. Well, speaking of embodying characters and the physical demands it takes to do your craft, how has any of this shifted due to virtual performance? What is the new methods or old methods that you're working on to put your character in place?
I think when we first started doing virtual shows, I felt so stunted by everything, because I was just like this itty bitty box, and I was mostly just doing reading. So I was like this tiny box. I'm just sitting here, like all my energy is going downward. I can't really like activate it with the partner, because I'm supposed to be like looking at the screen or looking at the camera, and I'm like, this doesn't help me at all. So I've had to really stretch myself and open myself up to the different ways of building character, or building awareness of my body in this small little screen. So whether that's like really stretching beforehand so that I can feel the energy in my body to access it when it comes to like the lines, or just kind of like really having to manufacture like all of this athleticism or all of this endurance while just standing at home or yelling against the wall and hoping that my neighbors don't call the cops, kind of sort of thing.
Jazmyn, are you in an apartment?
Yes, I am.
So you have,
Very thin walls.
I mean, you're in New York though, so like they're used to weird stuff, right? Like,
I mean, sure, but I mean, like lines where I have to say like murder, or you're dying. I'm like, oh, this is all bad.
Yeah. So in my space, I have figured out how to have like, I don't know, maybe like 5.5 feet left to right, and then 2.5 feet front and back. And in our show, like our asides to the audience are very, very, very close to the camera. So there's a lot of ways that we're finding that space and finding distance, and I think that's really exciting. Have we said who we're playing? I'm playing Iago in Othello, and yeah, a lot of this has been trying to figure out, as we change these characters from male characters to female, like what is a female Iago's body? How do they take up space? And yeah, how do they move through the world, and how do you connect with the audience when you don't have, in one of the things I love about Shakespeare is when you can talk directly to the audience and they're always on your character's side. Like Iago is clearly like the baddiest bad dude. But when Iago talks to the audience, they are on their team. Or they're like needling the audience in a way. So that's one thing that I've been trying to figure out, like, what's my relationship to the camera, and who is my audience, and how do I talk to them? And that's been something that I'm exploring. But also trying to figure out, gosh, it takes so much more imagination. When you're in a show on stage, you can look at your scene partner and look at the costumes and look at the set, and you're kind of there, and you can live in that world as it's been designed and presented. And here we're playing with, sometimes you're talking to the side and sometimes you're talking to the front, but like sometimes my character is my light stand, and it just takes so much more imagination. And I am very grateful that the work that I've done, especially for auditions, when you're like doing a monologue and you have to create the entire world around you, you have to create your imaginary other, you don't have a scene partner, you don't have a set, so you have to fill that in. All that work is even more amplified for the entire run of a show. And we have costumes and we have set, props and stuff, and that's really helpful to like specify, and you do have people that you're talking to. But yeah, it's a mental exercise in terms of specificity and imagination, and how do you make that believable, and how do you really exist within that world? So I think I'm still working on that. We have a little bit of time before we open.
Well, we have some time. We can get it together.
Totally fine. One of the things that I'm personally experimenting with right now is that exactly what you're both saying, stage presence, right? Like you now have to imagine the other person's presence and how that would affect you. Because on stage, right, like we respond to body language. We respond to just whatever vibes you're giving off. So if I'm supposed to be intimidated by somebody, how do I manifest that overhanging energy onto myself? That's hard. That's so hard. Or for when you're in scenes where you are talking intimately with someone, like, oh yeah, me and this camera are so flirting right now.
That one I see is like a little bit easier to do, because I'm like, I guess like FaceTime and stuff like that, I'm used to like kind of like, oh, I can flirt through my phone or something like that. It might tell you a little bit more about me than necessary. But but I'm like, oh, I can flirt with a camera, maybe just because I'm a flirt. But like in terms of like building tension that is based in like anger or fear is very difficult for me to do, because my mirror neurons aren't like feeling what's actually happening from you. I can only assume or guess or like, and then it's also because a lot of the people we're working with, we've never met. So I have no idea how you are as a person, or like how tall you are, what, anything about you to really gather some information about how my body might respond to your body. So yeah.
I'm really grateful that our director, Jamaica, has been saying things in rehearsal, like, if this was on stage, I'd have you like grabbing them by the collar. So when you come closer to the camera, it's that kind of energy. And I think knowing what that feels like in a real show or in person, then you can be like, oh, if I'm bringing that forward, how would I be pulled forward? What would I do? And how do I break that? But yeah, it's weird because like the kinds of almost like casual physical interactions that you have with people, you can't do. And so like how do you like shrug someone off when they're not there? Figuring that out is a little wonky sometimes.
I was working on a project and I was the flirt. I was channeling my inner Jazmyn. I was living my best life. And one of the things we were playing around with was like, my character totally would have been like blowing in the ear as she delivered her lines. So I was like, how do you embody that? How do you, on a screen, make it look like and feel like I'm giving you these lines, but I'm doing them in your ear. And like I was blessed with a really great scene partner who like did the whole like shudder thing, and I was like, yes. We did it. But it's hard to kind of have these relationships, both negative, positive, healthy, toxic. It's really hard to build relationships on screen sometimes when you have no physical like reference to how this person is interacting with the piece with you. Which
can I interrupt real quick? I was going to say I'm really passionate about actors learning the skill of self-taping. So I think that one of the great things about virtual theater and self-taping is that figuring that out, how do you share that? How do you get that across? You know, especially with COVID right now, we're not having any in-person auditions, but there is some work that is still happening. And it's being cast off of self-tapes. And you have to figure out, like, in your home, how do you present that whole world? How do you share those specific intentions? And it's kind of the actor's job now. We're not getting the like red carpet, perfect, beautiful circumstances. It's our job. And I think that's a really great skill for us to have. How do we really present truthful and fully embodied characters? And if we can do that on this little box, like, and self-taping is not going away, like all the time and money that it saves people, like we have to get used to this. And yeah, I think it's really important and tricky, but like, how do we do it? We got to make it happen.
Jazmyn, do you mind, since we've already revealed Zandi's character, do you mind telling our audience, who do you play in Othello?
Yes, I play the lovely Amelia. Lovely, complicated Amelia.
And
so we're married in the show. If you're not familiar with Othello.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I'm so excited to have you on, this is my first couple on the show.
No air quotes, we're a couple. Didn't you see the ring?
So good.
That's the cool thing about virtual theater is they mail you the props. Like, it's like getting, shopping from the internet, but you don't pay for it. It's the best. You're like, oh, another package.
You wake up one day single and the next day you're married. It's great.
I mean, I'm already married, but Well,
some of us new dreams.
It's okay.
If anyone in Othello would have two marriages that didn't know about each other, it would be Iago.
Yeah, it would be Iago.
It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, Iago's so bad at relationships. Okay. Iago is good at manipulation, but bad at actual relationships.
Which brings us...
Yeah, go ahead.
Which brings us into the question. How are the two of you forming the relationship for Amelia and Iago? And what are some of the topics that are currently at... Well, wow. Keyanna, try that question again. How are you forming the relationship for Amelia and Iago? And are there any particular hurdles that you've had to overcome while you create your relationship? Or maybe not overcome, but like hurdles that you have discussed that this couple would face.
Yeah, what's interesting about this show is Iago and Amelia have one scene where it's just the two of them.
Yep.
Every other scene, other people are present. And so you don't see that much of how they are on a daily basis, what their relationship is. So I think some of the challenges and what we've been figuring out is like, what is this relationship? Why does Amelia continue to support such a horrible, toxic person? And yeah, trying to figure out like, why would they be together? Where is their connection? I mean, I think we talked about this just last week. The one positive thing Iago says to Amelia is good girl, which like, that's not positive. Like if anyone ever said good girl to me, I'd be like, ah, right. So yeah, that's what we've been trying to figure out is like, what is this relationship? Why is Amelia coming back to Iago? Why is Iago with Amelia? You know, I don't think Iago has a lot of genuine empathy or connection with people. So yeah, I had a lot of questions there. And Jazmyn, how about you answer them all?
No, I'm always like, why, how? But recently I've been really looking into like trauma bonds, and like why people stay in the cycle of trauma bonds, even if it's not like, because there's no text that like explicitly says that Iago and Amelia's relationship is physically abusive. There's none that explicitly says that. So it's safe to assume on my end that it's emotionally abusive as well as just verbally. And that's also what happens in trauma bonds, where people are coming from maybe traumatic experiences, or there's just someone who is filled with trauma that puts it onto the other person. They're bonded. It starts off beautifully, and then it slowly divulges into manipulation. And then it's kind of impossible to just break out of it. For a lot of people. So I've been researching that, just trying to like get into the mind of it. But it's still very confusing, and it's still very like disheartening to kind of know that relationships like these exist. And for my character work, I I can never speak ill of Iago, unfortunately. I can't do it. That's someone Iago's my partner. I can do that in my head. I can make a slight, but when you are with someone that you love, I believe, and even if they're being manipulative, you can still make space for them. Whether you should or not is more complicated, but you will. Unfortunately, people who are like that always do. So yeah, and I think as we've gotten more into the text, and just like really seen how we respond to certain things differently, we've been able to cater kind of like some of our acting choices to that, because I know I'll latch on to some things that Zandi, the person, will naturally do that translate over into Iago, and I'm like, oh, now do I like that or dislike that? Okay, and then it informs how I talk about Iago or how I interact with Iago, no matter in what context. So yeah, but it's difficult. It's weird. And Zoom doesn't make it easier, because I would love to just be like in the same space with you, so we could just like figure this thing out a little bit better, so like we could stand beside each other and I could feel it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what we need.
Yeah, what would their like physical relationship with? Would there be more positive physical like connection, or would there not be? I don't like. That's interesting.
You know, it would probably be like, you know, like in my mind, like a smack on the butt, or like oh, you know, I'm just joking with you. And it's not like, okay, so you embarrass me and then you like sexualize me. This is great. And then to have like that cold distance between two married people, and then to see like Othello and Desdemona all over each other, it's just like,
yeah, figuring out like their physical distance proximity would be really, really fun and interesting, especially in that when Othello and Desdemona are in their like honeymoon phase and they're so like,
Yeah.
and we're just standing here like in our Zoom boxes.
Yep. Like awkward, you know. We're married and it's our life.
So I love that like all of these questions are rising up and we're acknowledging we may not find the answers, right? Like because there's this huge barrier of it being virtual for us. So a lot of these what ifs for if we were staging this in person aren't going to be answered in this particular production, but it makes for a remarkable opportunity for people to get more creative in how they're communicating and relating to the audience via camera. So wow, that was so much back and forth. I was like, it's almost like I'm watching like a real couple just like, oh yeah, this is exactly how our relationship works and I don't know why Iago's like this. So that was so remarkable for me to watch. Hi audience, I hope you like what's happening here as well.
Yeah, other people are watching. Hey.
Oh yeah, there's people watching. Hey y'all.
Let's take a step back though and talk about William Shakespeare and his works. And I'm just going to start with a general question and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. What is your relationship to William Shakespeare and his works? Let's start with Zandi.
Yeah, so I think a lot of us may have had the same experience in high school where we were like round robin reading. I think maybe even Othello, which is like, what a horrible choice for high schoolers to be working on. Yeah, where you're round robin reading it and just dreading, like counting the lines of who's next and which one you're going to get and not understanding it, not being given the tools to understand what it means and feeling like this is boring, this is confusing, I don't like this. I have a history of like judging something really harshly and being like, that thing is dumb, and then later becoming obsessed with it. And I did that with Shakespeare. I did that with like choir too. I was like, choirs are dumb. And then I was like in a elite competition choir like for many years. So, just whatever I think is dumb next, I'll probably become obsessed with it. I don't know what it is now, but so we have that experience. And then in college, I felt like I was finally given the tools to understand it and to break it down. And one of the things I love about Shakespeare is it is complicated, and everyone, even the most experienced people are going to come in with needing to dive into it and really question, like, what does that actually mean? What, how do we figure this out? And there's so many tools to help you figure it out. There's so many resources. Whereas if you have a contemporary play, you're like, I don't really get it. And then you're like, okay. And you can talk about it with your scene partner and your director and, maybe the playwrights around that you could connect with, but, there's not articles and I mean like right here, like lexicons. I'm such a nerd, right? Like first folios, like you can't look things up and just dive into it. And so I love doing that. And I loved getting the tools to figure that out and kind of have that even playing ground where we all are working together to uncover it, that table work of what does this mean? And like, how do we present this? And I love that. So I did Midsummer and Twelfth Night in college. And then my first show out of college was Titus Andronicus back in Seattle. And I've been able to do a fair amount of Shakespeare shows, some really great ones, some not great ones. I think having a director who really understands the text and the story helps a lot. And pre-pandemic, I was working as the education coordinator for Seattle Shakespeare Company. So I was actually directing youth productions. I was going into high schools and teaching as part of their Romeo and Juliet workshop So as they're studying that, we would come in and teach about the text. We would teach stage combat, and we would teach Elizabethan dance. So my goal, especially when we did those like 3-day workshops, was to win over everyone by day 3. Because you tell them day 1, they're going to be doing Elizabethan dance and they're like, whoa, right? But if you can win over like high school freshman boys and get them into doing the pavane and the brawl, like, yes, right? So yeah, I love just like sharing Shakespeare. How do we make it accessible? How do we make it fun? Because I do think these characters, even if we don't relate to exactly their circumstance, have universal appeal. You know, when we talk about Romeo and Juliet, we all have someone that we thought we liked, and then we meet someone else and we like them more, right? Like Romeo is obsessed with Rosalind in the beginning, but then meets Juliet. I was like, you know, I love asking the high schoolers, like, have you ever had a crush on someone and then you see someone else and you totally forget that you had a crush on that other person, and they're like, whatever, right? Or have you ever had your friend like obsessed with someone and they're so annoying and you like tease them and make fun of them? Or have you ever had communication mishaps, right? Like where you think someone means this, but they mean something else. Like, do you have problems with your parents? Do they want you to do something and you want to do something different? Like all of these, oh my gosh. And then what I used to say is like, do you ever have communication, but then you're quarantined to the plague and so the letter doesn't get, right? And I was like making jokes about plagues. And then now we've been in a year-long pandemic. And like, you know, if we go back and teach this again, they will relate to that. So it all is a part of our lives, right? Yeah. So that's my relationship with Shakespeare. It's complicated, right? There are shows that have some really icky themes, icky words. So we kind of have to wrestle with that. I'm all for cutting or changing Shakespeare to tell the story that we want to tell, especially when it comes to derogatory language and fat shaming. I did a youth production of Merry Wives of Windsor, where we just took out like all the fat shaming that happens with Falstaff, all that negative stuff about body size, especially when Falstaff is like disguised as like the old woman. I'm all for in Comedy of Errors taking out the Nell, like, oh, she's so fat, she's like a globe. Like, there are other ways that we can have humor without punching down and like, so yeah, but then it's complicated. We got to wrestle with what the original material is and what happens when we change it or we admit things that aren't comfortable to us.
Yep.
And I think that's one thing this adaptation does really well is it doesn't shy away from the racial tension specifically. I could go more into that. I feel like we're going to go more into that later. So I'm going to like send this over to Jazmyn since I've just been geeking out over Shakespeare and like what I love about it. Yeah.
Well, now I have to tell you all the things I hate about Shakespeare. God, I really hate Shakespeare. No, I started out similarly in high school, like reading it. We read Romeo and Juliet, and I was like, yeah. This is words on a page. This is great, yeah. And then I think we watched the Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I was kind of like, well, Romeo's not so bad. I mean, you know, he's kind of cool. And I mean, this was also the first time I had seen like a Black person in Shakespeare, because I know the Mercutio was played by, I'm going to be so upset for forgetting his name, but he's a very well-known Black actor. And I was like, oh, so Black people can be in Shakespeare? I was like, okay, cool. But as I went on to kind of do acting, be an actor professionally and kind of explore the arts, I steered away from it because I thought, oh, it's a little bit too daunting. Oh, you have to have like a lot of knowledge about Shakespeare or know how to say the words. It's a particular way to say them. I thought it was like just some algorithm I just didn't know. So I was like, I just can't do it. I just can't. But when I got to grad school and we did an entire year of just Shakespearean text, I was like, golly, this is gonna suck. This is gonna be awful. And I did. I sucked at the top of it. Sucked. Like literally, my professors, Stephen Brown-Freed and Scott Whitehurst, they could tell you I sucked. But it was only after having numerous conversations with them and being like, okay, actually just listen to the musicality of it, hear what's being said, because a lot of the stuff that's being said, it's really simple. It's just like a lot of fluff around it. There's a lot of like allegories and there's like metaphors for other things. It's not always straightforward. So it's just a roundabout way of saying like, oh, I like you. It's like, they'll just say, how do I compare thee to a summer's day? I'm trying to find all the words to really express what I want to say. And I think that's one of the things I do love about Shakespeare is that it really takes the inside of us and tries to bring it to the outside. What we're really thinking and how we're really feeling about someone and not making it just so clear cut. Because that's not humanity. Humanity is not simple. It's not direct all the time. It's sometimes overcomplicated. Sometimes there are misunderstandings. One of my professors told me that Shakespeare puts a mirror up to society. And ever since I heard that, I was like, oh, so he was just kind of like a guy who wanted to show everybody else that they aren't great people all the time. I was like, I like that. That's an idea I can get behind. But yeah, I fell in love with Titus Andronicus at my MFA program. They did an all-female production of it. It was the bloodiest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life, and I loved every second of it.
Did you play?
Samaj, the director there. And then also I did As You Like It, Celia, obviously. But so that was great. And I fell in love with like Julius Caesar and all the tragedies and histories. I'm such a nerd at heart. So like when you start telling me about like these locations and places and the wars, I'm like, oh, let me research that. Oh, wow, did you know this war when they did it? And I just freak out about stuff like that. But that's not to say that Shakespeare isn't still like complicated and flawed, because hell yeah, I mean, if you read Taming of the Shrew, you will know that it is. Anyway, you know that there are issues there, or some of the sonnets, there are issues there. So I've never been someone who's like, oh, Shakespeare's so amazing, because I mean, also if you look at all of his works, how many Black people does he actually talk about in any of his works? They're always called the Moor, and it's always a Black man who's normally killed at the end. So I'm like, Shakes, what you doing, Willie? But yeah, I found a love for like the classics now, and I use classics loosely, but I've fallen in love with just how complicated life is in the Shakespearean world, and I'm like, that's so real. That's my life right now. I feel it, Willie. Me and you, we're here, but from distance. Yeah.
One of the more recent trends, I'm going to call it a trend, right? This idea of separating the artist from their work. And I think that William Shakespeare is one of those of like, how much can we separate him from what he has given us as his legacy? And I think both of you make really great points of like, some of the intentions were off.
Oh, yeah.
And then some of them were on point. And kind of shifting through this very large catalog of work that he has left behind and trying to discern for yourself, what pieces can I find merit in and what pieces just throw the whole thing away.
Yeah.
And I think Othello's one of those pieces where we are still investigating. Do we throw the whole thing away or do we keep parts of it? which is why this production is so fascinating to me, because Jamaica does not shy away from that's part of the conversation. Part of the conversation is, oh yeah, this narrative, not the best. Not the best story you want to be telling to our black and brown kids.
Yeah,
So,
I think also like Umfaniso's translation helps us really weed out kind of like the underbelly of it. It's like, actually, let's just go ahead and say the thing. Like we're still doing it in a coded language, but there's still like we can hear it. We can hear it a little bit clearer than we could, because for some people, Shakespeare's not so easily accessible to the ear. They can't hear exactly what's being said sometimes because of the old English, or just like the musicality just sounds a little bit off to them. But I think Umfaniso's translation really helps us. Like, no, that's what he said. There, right there. That said we meant.
Yeah. So in the original text, Othello is always called Moor. And we have changed, Umfanisa has changed the words that are used in replacement of that. And it's really, God, it really highlights the cruelty and the anti-blackness that Iago has. And you can't hide away from, oh, well, more like that was just like where they were from, or right. Like it is very upfront and direct. And I'm now curious, playing this role is difficult, because as a white person right now, so much of my energy is trying to figure out how do we dismantle white supremacy? How can we be more anti-racist? How do we like all of those thoughts of what is my place? What is my responsibility? What can I do to make this better? And then playing this character who clearly does not do that kind of work and uses awful language. And you can't hide behind the more coded Shakespearean verse or calling Othello more. And it makes me wonder, like, what kind of work have the other white male Iagos done while playing this role, or have they in looking at their role as a white person playing this, and their personal responsibility? I don't know. So if any of you have played Iago before and you're like, yeah, I did a ton of work, I want to hear about it. But yeah, it's really interesting and complicated and icky, and yeah.
I think it's so interesting. I think that's one of the like great things about this iteration of it, is because most of the cast are people of color. So in other iterations of Othello, it's kind of been like, well, you have other like white people reinforcing this, or it's like, well, it's more of a community effort. And not to say that it's not a community effort in art, because there's still a lot of like anti-blackness, even in the words of people that are Black or Latinx or Asian. So we have to really unpack that as well. But in other productions, it's kind of like, well, that would require all of us to kind of have to do that. And it's like, I don't know why it seems like an easier job to do when it's like more like white folks in a room, and especially like a white man, like for him to just be like, well, like there are other people here, so it's not just me, like it's fine, like I'm not the creator of this, since there's so many other like white folks. And it's kind of like hard to do that. Not hard, but easier to get off without doing it.
Yeah, we have kind of the inverse of more traditional casting, where you have all white people and then one Black Othello. And then in our cast, I think I'm the like only just white.
Yeah.
Like not biracial, not like yeah, I am just a Northern European mutt white lady, and the rest of the cast is BIPOC actors and, you know, beautifully diverse. So yeah, it's a very different layout than your traditional Othello. And there's been productions where they've changed the casting. You know, there was a production with a Black Iago that was, oh gosh, was it National Theater? I don't know, somewhere in England, and I saw some clips of that. So like people have played with casting and race with this show before, but I've never seen a production like this, where it's all, you know, female, non-binary actors, and predominantly a non-white cast.
Yeah. I think that one of the parts that I would really love for us to leave on for our audience to contemplate with is, yes, Iago is the antagonist. Yes, we can easily point a finger at Iago and say this is the cause of all the problems. But Othello's downfall is not that simple. I think everyone in the show is a little bit culpable, a little bit responsible, and similar to what Jazmyn said, for these casts that are traditionally cast with mostly white people, how much work goes into people recognizing, oh, we're all a little bit involved in the fall of this Black person. Yeah. We're all a little bit a part of this. So, and then again, wow, Jazmyn dropping so many bombs on us today. That whole lifting the mirror up to society, just like all of them are a little bit culpable. What parts do you see yourself in, either in Iago or somebody else in the cast, and you're like, ooh, I do that. I do say that. So recognizing, right, like, society got issues, just like this show has issues.
Well, you know, not even like I do that. It's like I don't stop it.
Yeah. I see it and I don't say anything. Yep.
I think the great thing that we'll see is how silent some people are, because I don't know if this is giving anything away, but Amelia is silent for a lot of the show. So how much weight does silence actually hold when you do not stand up for someone? We see it a lot in our right now, especially with the events that had just happened in Atlanta. We see that when people are not vocal about anti-Asian hate and anti-Asian sentiments and anti-xenophobia, we see what that does. We can see very much so what that contributes to a larger conversation, where if we do not say out loud, hi, I am against this, or hi, this is wrong, no one's there to tell the other side no.
Or calling your senators and like talk to them about, you know, putting laws to help prevent more domestic terrorism. And I mean, I could get on a whole soapbox about gun violence and safety and all that, but you know, we're running out of time. So just, you know, do your own research and be politically involved and vote and email your senators, and let's make the world safe.
Yeah, and be vocal. Your silence doesn't save anyone.
And speaking of time, yes, friends, we are coming close to the end of the show. So before we dive into the pluggables for these two lovely human beings, a kind reminder that tickets to this production of Othello, guess what, friends? They're on sale, like right now, as we speak. You can go and buy one or 10. You know, let me not limit you and put you in a box. Link to that is all in the description, along with all of our like social media. Yay, love that. Real quick, Zandi, we're gonna cut the basketball game, and you're just gonna teach me Elizabethan dance when I go.
Yes, it's really fun.
Okay, great,
yeah.
Cool. I now know what I'm doing once I get vaccinated. see you there.
Great.
But yes, hi friends. Do you have any people, places, projects that you want to shout out? Where can people find you and your work?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and TikTok. Gosh, y'all, I'm an older millennial on TikTok. I haven't been posting much because I'm spending all my time working on memorizing Iago's lines, and parenting, which is hard. We don't even go into that. Being a parent of 2 kids during a pandemic. Okay. But yeah, you can find me at Zandi, Zandi _ Carlson. And yeah, this is kind of all I'm doing right now. This is taking up a lot of time and focus. So that's what I got. Yeah, I'm probably directing a radio version of 12th Night coming up again. We're in rehearsals, then we couldn't record because of COVID precautions. But yeah, I think that's coming up again with the Bainbridge Pod Accomplice. And so that'll be coming up sometime. And yeah, that's all.
Jazmyn, where can people find you? What are you working on?
If you want to stalk me on Instagram, that's fine. It's Jasmine D Boone. That's pretty much it. You'll just see my face a lot. Also, watch out. You'll hopefully see a commercial for me for Head and Shoulders and Bumble within like the next 2 months. So just look out, say hi, and be like, hey, screenshot that. Let me know that you saw my face. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Their social media handles, by the way, are in the description. So if you just want to, I don't know how social media works. So you've wanted to like copy and paste them into your Instagram, what have you, do it. Follow these individuals because they're doing wonderful work. Thank you so much for being on the show today, y'all. Like, this has been such a wonderful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I feel like we could go on for like 2 more hours and like still have stuff to talk about.
I'm actively like looking at the clock as we speak, and I'm just like, oh no, there's no way we're gonna hit on everything. Oh no.
I told you I would talk too much, right? Like,
so I think dream like T&D episode is that we invite all 11 cast members of the show on. There's no way. It'd be a scheduling nightmare. But, like, in a perfect world, we could get all 11 of y'all on the show, and we would just have a gab session. It'd be so much fun.
The conversations we have as a cast are pretty fantastic.
Yes. Yes to all of that. Okay, wow. Keyanna, end the episode. Hi, theater makers. Thank you so much for being here and joining in on this conversation with us. Again, all of our links and stuff are down below in the description, including tickets to Othello. So follow these individuals on social media. Follow this show on social media. If you have any cool virtual theater productions or experiences you want to share, you can email that. The email also in the description. Just keep scrolling, y'all. Just scroll all the time. Okay. This has been the Amelia and Iago of Othello with me, Keyanna Alexander, letting everybody know, hey friends, theater's not dead. We'll see you next time.